My mother used to say that success is like an iceberg. What people see is merely the tip, while the real work lies hidden beneath the surface. I never quite grasped the weight of her words until I became that iceberg myself. I'm Emma Chin, and this is the story of how I went from being the embarrassing waitress in my husband's family to watching their seemingly flawless world collapse in a single night. I grew up in a modest apartment above my parents' small restaurant in San Francisco's Chinatown. Long before I could reach the kitchen counter, I understood the value of hard work. By the time I was 8, I was folding napkins and greeting customers. By 12, I was balancing the books better than my father ever could. "Emma, come help me with these numbers," my father would call out, his glasses slipping down his nose. I'd race over, eager to assist. "Bah, the profit margin is too low. If we adjust the menu prices by just 10%, we could." He'd laugh, tousling my hair. "My little business genius, you'll go far, Emma." Those early years taught me everything I needed to know about business, people, and the power of perception. While other kids were playing with toys, I was immersed in spreadsheets and profit margins. My parents worked 18-hour days to send me to college, and I was determined not to waste their sacrifice. At Stanford, I developed an ad-driven financial analysis system that caught the attention of major investment firms. By the time I was 25, I'd turned that system into FinTech Solutions, one of the fastest-growing financial technology companies in Silicon Valley. But I kept my success quiet, working behind the scenes while others took the spotlight. Then I met Michael. It happened at a coffee shop near my old neighborhood. I was in my usual weekend getup, jeans, a simple sweater, and worn sneakers, typing away on my laptop when he literally crashed into my table. "Oh God, I'm so sorry," he exclaimed, catching my laptop just in time before it toppled into the coffee spill. I was texting and walking. Terrible habit, I know. I looked up to see warm brown eyes and a sheepish smile that made my heart skip a beat. "No harm done," I said, helping him clean up the mess. "I'm Emma." "Michael, let me buy you another coffee to make up for nearly drowning your laptop." One coffee turned into dinner, and before long, dinners became a regular occurrence. Michael was different from the tech and finance guys I usually encountered. He was a high school history teacher who spoke passionately about making education accessible to underserved students. He didn't care about stock prices or market trends. He cared about people. When he proposed 6 months later, I didn't hesitate for a second. That's when I met his family, and that's when everything changed. The Blackwoods were old money. Their conversations were filled with casual mentions of summer homes and yacht clubs. Michael's sister, Victoria, was especially proud of her role as marketing director at Preston Shaw, one of the largest investment firms in the city. From the moment we met at their family estate, Victoria made her feelings clear. "So, Emma," she said during our first dinner together, swirling her wine glass with practiced elegance, "Michael mentioned you work in the service industry." I could have corrected her. I could have said I owned a company worth billions, but something held me back. Maybe it was the way she said service industry like it was a disease, or maybe I was just curious about how people behave when they think they have the upper hand. "I help run a family business," I replied, keeping my tone neutral. "Oh, the little Chinese restaurant?" Victoria's perfectly manicured hand flew to her chest in mock sympathy. "How quaint. I suppose someone has to do those jobs." Michael shifted uncomfortably but said nothing. His mother, Eleanor, chimed in with a forced cheerfulness. "Well, not everyone can have Victoria's success. She just closed a major marketing campaign for Preston Shaw." The CEO himself praised her work. I had to bite back a smile. Preston Shaw was one of the many companies that licensed my financial analysis software. In fact, they were in the middle of negotiating a much larger contract with my firm. "That's impressive," I said sincerely. Victoria beamed. The following months established a pattern. Every family gathering was another opportunity for Victoria to remind everyone of my unfortunate background. Michael would squeeze my hand under the table but never openly defended me. "They're just set in their ways," he'd say later. "Give them time." Then came the announcement. Victoria was throwing a grand party at the Blackwood estate to celebrate her promotion to senior marketing director. The guest list included Preston Shaw's executive team and several major clients. "Of course, Emma," Victoria said during the planning dinner, her smile as sharp as a blade, "we'll need extra help with service. Since you've worked in the restaurant business, would you mind helping out? The professional staff could use someone to direct them." Eleanor clapped her hands. "What a wonderful idea. Emma knows all about running a restaurant. It's perfect." I locked eyes with Victoria, her smug expression betraying her belief that she'd put me in my place. Of course, I said coolly, I'd be happy to help. That night, Michael tried to apologize. You don't have to do this. We can tell them you're not feeling well. No, I said, my mind already working. I want to help. After all, it's a big night for Victoria. Everything should be perfect. What they didn't know was that I'd received an interesting email that morning. James Preston, the CEO of Preston Shaw, wanted to meet the mysterious founder of FinTech Solutions to discuss a potential merger. He would be attending Victoria's party. The pieces were falling into place, and for the first time since meeting the Blackwoods, I felt a genuine smile spread across my face. Victoria had no idea that her perfect party was about to become the stage for something far more interesting than a promotion celebration. Sometimes, I reflected, the best revenge isn't about getting even, it's about revealing the truth in the most spectacular way possible. And I had a feeling this party was going to be exactly that. The day of Victoria's party arrived with all the subtlety of a Broadway production. The Blackwood estate had been transformed into what Eleanor proudly referred to as a tasteful display of success. To me, it looked more like a desperate attempt to impress. Crystal chandeliers had been brought in specifically for the evening, ice sculptures adorned the garden, a string quartet played softly in the corner. The irony wasn't lost on me. If the party's budget wasn't already higher than Victoria's annual salary, it certainly came close. Emma, Victoria's sharp voice sliced through my thoughts. She was already draped in a designer gown, one that probably cost more than my parents' first restaurant. The catering staff is waiting in the kitchen, she instructed, her tone as practiced as her appearance. Try to keep them organized, and please, she looked pointedly at my simple black dress, stay in the background. This is an important night for me. I gave a demure nod. Of course, Victoria, I'll make sure everything runs smoothly. As I started toward the kitchen, Michael caught my arm. You don't have to do this, he whispered. We can leave right now. I stroked his cheek, offering a reassuring smile. Don't worry, everything will work out exactly as it should. In the kitchen, I found the catering team in disarray. Victoria had already passed through, making last-minute demands. Mrs. Chin, a young server approached, clearly anxious. Miss Blackwood wants the champagne served precisely at 8:05 for her speech, but she also wants continuous tray service, and we're short-staffed. I smiled, stepping into the role with practiced ease. Let me help, I've done this before. For the next hour, I worked alongside the catering team, smoothly managing the flow of service while keeping an eye on the arriving guests. Victoria, meanwhile, flitted about the room, drinking champagne and laughing too loudly at her colleagues' jokes. Did you see Emma? I overheard her telling a group of guests, my brother's wife? She's helping the servers. It's really where she's most comfortable, poor thing. Some people just aren't meant for our world. Eleanor joined in with an exaggerated cheerfulness. We tried to include her. Of course, it's what family does. But there's only so much you can do with someone from such limited means. I carried on, serving drinks, as Preston Shaw executives began to filter in. James Preston was expected at 8 o'clock, just before Victoria's big speech. At 7:55, my phone buzzed. A text from my CFO. Everything's ready, documents signed, you're good to go. Perfect timing. Victoria, increasingly tipsy, raised her voice to be heard across the room. You know, she said to a group of colleagues, when Michael first brought her home, I thought for sure he was joking. I mean, a waitress? But mother says we must be charitable. Speaking of charity, Eleanor added with feigned sincerity, we're considering offering to help them with a down payment on a small condo. Nothing too close to our neighborhood, of course, but somewhere suitable. A ripple of excitement spread through the crowd as James Preston arrived. Victoria nearly sprinted to the door, champagne sloshing in her glass. Mr. Preston, we're so honored you could make it. James Preston was the epitome of power in a perfectly tailored suit. His eyes scanned the room and landed on me. For a brief moment, confusion flashed across his face. Victoria, misinterpreting his look, rushed to explain. Oh, don't mind her, that's just my brother's wife, helping with service. Let me show you the amazing marketing presentation I prepared. Actually, James interrupted, still looking at me, isn't that? I set my serving tray down on a nearby table and walked toward him. Victoria's face turned an unattractive shade of red. Emma, please, Mr. Preston doesn't need a drink right now. Go back to the kitchen where you belong. Hello, James, I said, my tone calm. Thank you for coming tonight. The color drained from Victoria's face as James broke into a wide grin. Mrs. Chin, I didn't expect to find you serving drinks at your own party. My own? Victoria's voice cracked. Well, yes, but... James continued, glancing at me with admiration. Considering that FinTech Solutions just acquired controlling interest in Preston Shaw, I assumed this party was to announce the merger. He turned to me. Unless you wanted to keep that quiet for now? The room fell completely silent. Even the string quartet had stopped playing. Victoria's champagne glass slipped from her fingers, crashing onto the marble floor. I don't understand, she stammered. Emma's a waitress. She runs a small Chinese restaurant. James chuckled. Mrs. Chin is the founder and CEO of FinTech Solutions. She just became my boss, and, effectively, yours too. He turned back to me. By the way, those algorithmic improvements you suggested for our trading platform are brilliant. Eleanor, her face pale, gripped the back of a nearby chair. This must be a mistake. Emma's not, she couldn't be. Oh, but I am, I said softly. The quiet of the room magnified every word. FinTech Solutions has been my company from the beginning, and as of 10 minutes ago, we own 51% of Preston Shaw. I turned to Victoria, who looked as though she might faint, including the marketing department. Victoria's face shifted to a shade of green the first hadn't thought possible. But all those times you treated me like a servant? I finished for her, made comments about my background, suggested I wasn't good enough for your family? I smiled, my voice unwavering. I remembered every single one. Michael had pushed his way through the stunned crowd. Emma, why didn't you tell me? Would it have made a difference? I asked quietly. Would you have stood up to your family if you knew I was wealthy? Because you never stood up for me when you thought I wasn't. The weight of those words hung heavily in the air. Michael stepped back, his face a mask of shame. James cleared his throat, breaking the tension. Well, since we're all here, shall we make the announcement official? Preston Shaw's new direction, under FinTech Solutions leadership. Of course. He glanced at Victoria. I believe you had a speech prepared about the company's future. Would you like to deliver it, or shall I? Victoria swayed slightly, then turned and bolted from the room, Eleanor hurrying after her. I took a champagne glass from a nearby tray and gently clinked it. Ladies and gentlemen, if I could have your attention, please. The aftermath of my revelation rippled through the Blackwood family like a tidal wave. As I stood at the podium, outlining FinTech Solutions' vision for Preston Shaw's future, I could see family members processing the reality of their new world in different ways. Michael had retreated to a corner, looking shell-shocked. Eleanor was nowhere to be seen, presumably following Victoria. Mr. Blackwood, who had been unusually quiet throughout my time in the family, stood by the bar, lost in thought, his empty glass in hand. After the formal announcement, James Preston pulled me aside. Quite the dramatic reveal, he said, a twinkle of amusement in his eyes. But I've got to ask, why let them think you were a waitress for so long? I took a sip of my champagne, savoring the taste of vindication. Sometimes, people show you who they really are when they think you're beneath them. He nodded thoughtfully. Well, their loss is definitely our gain. I look forward to working with you properly this time. As the party began to wind down, Victoria reappeared, her makeup expertly retouched. Though her composure was visibly fragile, she marched straight toward me, her heels clicking against the marble floor. You humiliated me, she hissed, her voice low but sharp, in front of everyone who matters in my professional life. I met her gaze calmly. No, Victoria, you humiliated yourself. I simply let you do it in front of witnesses. I'll resign, she said, her voice trembling with indignation. I won't work for you. That's your choice, I replied, my tone steady. But before you make it, know this, every major firm in the city has already heard about tonight's events. Your reputation for looking down on service workers while unknowingly insulting your CEO isn't going to help your job search. She deflated slightly, the weight of the truth sinking in. What do you want from me? She asked, her defiance faltering. I want you to learn from this. Starting Monday, you'll be working with our community outreach program. We're partnering with local restaurants and small businesses to provide financial technology support. You'll be reporting directly to my mother. Your mother? Victoria asked, her confusion evident. Yes, I nodded. She still runs the family restaurant, by choice, not necessity. She'll be overseeing our small business initiative. I think you'll learn a lot about real business acumen from her. Victoria opened her mouth to protest, but the words didn't come. For the first time since I'd known her, she looked uncertain. Eleanor stepped forward next, her usual perfect composure cracking at the edges. "Emma, surely we can discuss this privately," she said, her voice almost pleading. "We're family, after all." "Family?" I turned to face her, my expression hardening. "For 3 years, you've treated me like an embarrassment. You excluded me from family photos, seated me with the staff at gatherings, and made countless comments about my unfortunate background. When, exactly, did you consider me family?" I paused, letting the words hang in the air before I continued. "We didn't know that I was wealthy," I said calmly, "and that's the point, isn't it? You thought I was poor, so I wasn't good enough. Now that you know I'm rich, suddenly you want to talk." Mr. Blackwood, to my surprise, stepped forward. "She's right, Eleanor," he said, his voice steady but regretful. "We've behaved abominably." He turned to face me. "I've watched this family's values decay into something I no longer recognize. Perhaps this wake-up call was long overdue." Finally, Michael approached, his face a mask of regret. "Why didn't you tell me?" he asked softly. "I wanted to, so many times," I answered, my voice quiet but firm. "But each time you stayed silent while your family belittled me, I realized something. If you couldn't respect me as a waitress, you didn't deserve to know me as a CEO." He reached out to me, his voice raw. "I love you. Love without respect isn't enough, Michael," I said, my words deliberate. "Every time you let your family treat me as less than human, you showed me exactly what our marriage was worth to you." "I can change now that I know, now that you're wealthy," he stammered. "Let me change." "No, Michael," I said firmly, "that's just adjusting your behavior to suit your interests." With a calm finality, I slipped off my wedding ring and placed it on the table between us. "I filed for divorce last week. You'll be hearing from my lawyers." "Emma, please," he sounded desperate, but I was already done. "I have a meeting with the Preston Shaw board tomorrow morning." "Victoria," I said, without looking at him, "I expect you at the restaurant at 9 a.m. Monday. My mother doesn't tolerate tardiness." I turned to leave, then paused for one final jab. "Oh, and Eleanor, the estate looks lovely. You might want to enjoy it while you can. The bank just approved my bid to buy it. I think it'll make a wonderful location for our new charitable foundation, providing education and opportunities for service industry workers." The look on their faces was priceless, but I didn't stay to savor it. I walked out into the cool night air, my phone buzzing with a text from my mother. "Coming to the restaurant for a late dinner. Your father made your favorite." I smiled and typed back a quick yes. 20 minutes later, I sat in the familiar warmth of my parents' restaurant, savoring dumplings and recounting the evening's events. "Yeah," my mother said with a rueful shake of her head, "such drama, but good. Some people need to learn respect the hard way." My father nodded sagely. "Success without humility is like a tree without roots. It topples in the first strong wind." As I helped them close for the night, I reflected on the journey that had brought me here. Yes, the CEO of FinTech Solutions still helps wash dishes. The little girl who once counted coins at this very counter now counted her wealth in billions. But the most valuable lessons I'd learned weren't about money, they were about respect, integrity, and the courage to stand up for my worth. 6 months later, Victoria had undergone a complete transformation under my mother's mentorship, discovering a genuine passion for helping small businesses thrive. The Blackwood estate had been repurposed into the Chin Foundation for educational opportunity, offering programs for underprivileged students and service industry workers seeking career advancement. Michael sent occasional emails, but I never responded. Some bridges, once burned, are better left that way. As for me, I finally stepped into the public eye as FinTech Solutions CEO, but I never stopped helping at my parents' restaurant on weekends. It keeps me grounded, reminds me of where I came from. Sometimes, customers do a double take when they realize the person serving them their soup is a billionaire CEO. I just smile and ask if they need extra napkins. After all, success is like an iceberg. What people see is just the tip. The real substance, the true measure of a person's worth, lies in how they treat others, especially when they think nobody important is watching. And that's a lesson the Blackwoods learned the hard way.